tripod that Dibble Craftian so graciously provided me with. A lot's going on in the world. If you're out there, give me a thumbs up. If you're out there, give me a thumbs up so I can see what's going on. Okay. So, lots going on in this world. A lot's going on in this world. And not very much of it is good. So, if you watch Canadian Preppers channel, the Bear Country BOMBED, the port of Odessa, excuse me, in the Crane country, and they wiped out thousands of tons of grain that would have gone overseas to feed the poor. And a matter of fact is that because the whole world knows that there's going to be an intense famine starting next year, that they're really not even giving the grain to the poor, they're giving it to the highest bidder. It's always about the money. These people start WARS for the money. It's always about the money. I used to think that Bible verse about what does it profit a man to own the whole world and lose his soul didn't really have anybody that it applied to. But then you have the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and even Slow Joe's family that have made all these deals with the devil, at other people's expense for $1. They literally sell out their soul for $1. The ironic thing about the politicians is that many of them are Luciferian, but they will give God lip service by having a Christian burial at the end of their lives, foolishly thinking that that's going to get them a ticket into heaven. After they cause all of this billions of people to suffer around the world. They're consummate liars. They lie to us, they lie to each other. That's why they can't make a good decision for the country, is everything is based on a lie. They said, we can't let 45 back into office because he'll start a WAR. So Sleepy Joe gets back into office, and what does he do? He makes one speech that says, if the bear, goes into Crane country on a limited basis, we won't do anything about it. So that that one speech gave the green light that started WW3 off. And if you don't think we're in WW3, you're kidding yourself. Even the Pope said that we're in the beginning of WW3. There's all sorts of WARS. There's pestilences. There's riots. There's earthquakes all over the world. So, hey, Justin. Good to see you, buddy. So, the reason for my video, again, is to stress for those of you that are sitting in mommy and dad's basement playing video games and you're not ready, you're not going to make it. I'm just telling you the way it is. You got to be prayed up and prepped up in this world because everything is moving fast. I myself am still going through this pestilence of fleas. I have no idea where they came from, but I've been vacuuming and everything, spraying, trying to get rid of them. And man, those little buggers have been chewing on me something fierce. I got Band-Aids all over my arms, and they look like a little speck of pepper. When I make the bed, you know, the sheet will be perfectly white, and then all of a sudden I'll see this little speck, looks like somebody shook some black pepper on the sheet, and there they are. They jump. And man, they are vicious. They've been waking me up at night and everything. And the IBS has flared up. Old Pop been leaking like a 71 Chevy Vega. Hey, Katrina. But getting back to the important stuff is that even Canadian Prepper uses the term biblical. Everybody says biblical. The Euphrates River has dried up. That was prophesied 2,000 years ago. Thousands of years ago, the Bible prophesied that in latter days the Euphrates River would dry up and allow the kings of the east to march along the Euphrates on their way to WAR. Scientists are worried about the Yellowstone supervolcano. The Yellowstone supervolcano could erupt. Chinese scientists this week are worried about the Earth's magnetic core flipping. And the thing that's important about the magnetic core, the Earth's magnetic core keeps the water on the Earth. And it keeps the solar winds from dragging the Earth's water away. Now, with the HAARP and CERN experiments with the Large Hadron Collider, they're pushing the Earth's ionosphere further and further out into space. And the reason they're trying to do it is they're trying to make a jump state to go back into time. Because see, when you look at a star at night, you're seeing the past. You're going back light years by looking at a star, and you're actually looking into the past. That star that you're looking at, you're seeing the light from it from centuries past, but that star could actually, have gone out, and you're seeing the residual light. That's how many thousands of light years worth of light that you're seeing. I don't know how to describe it any better than that. But when you look into the stars, you're literally looking into the past. And these scientists want to make a way of time travel, so that they can influence things. They think so far out of the box. Like, for example, the Large Hadron Collider makes such a large magnetic field and electrical field that it actually influences the Earth's magnetic field. And what they're trying to do, in part, for example, is there's a large clean landmass under Antarctica that, by the way, has pyramids on it. So it wasn't always under the ice. And they're trying to tow that landmass out from underneath the ice into a better climate so that they can repopulate it. And I tend to believe that because, for example, when I first moved here, the road that I live on went when I first moved here, the road that I lived on was perfectly north and south. And now if I were to take a compass and go outside, it would point 15 degrees west. And the scientists and all are adjusting the satellite GPS and all of that. They know about it. Now when the sun goes down, it sets off to the, north, south, east, west. It sets off to the west like a fall sun, very low in the sky. And at about 7:30 at night, it comes through the window so strong that it feels like I'm being sunburned. And I'm afraid of the curtains getting so hot. That kind of stuff. The sun is just crazy strong at night. 7:30, 7 o'clock at night. You know, it's like a noonday sun. Like that Twilight Zone where the planet got knocked out of orbit, you know, and the weather changed. But these people are doing it on purpose. And then you have the nut jobs that believe nuclear WAR would be good for cooling down the planet because of all of the debris that it would throw up into the air. So you have those nut jobs. And then you have the people, you know, like Barry Obama said that America would have to weaken so that it could get into place in the new order. And the current administration seems like they're doing an excellent job of that. They've depleted our emergency fuel reserves down to the lowest that it's ever been. We have no ammunition to defend ourselves, and they're trying to disarm the population via all of these false flags so that they can let the UN roll in and take over. And as far as these infrastructure improvements that are being made, isn't it interesting that they're improving bridges and roads that tanks would need to roll over to come into this country and take it over? And don't kid yourself by thinking that this horde of people that's all military aged young men for the most part coming into this country is nothing more than a fifth column. See, my generation, if I was sitting in a college room and the teacher tried to run some BS, you know, by me, that we would have to destroy our country so that we could give it over to a third party somewhere that we don't even know where they are. For the most part, we don't know who they are because they're a secret society and you can't elect them or get them out of office. We would tell the teacher, well, you're nuts for even suggesting that. Get out of here. But young people now, it just saddens me that words like patriotism and all of that are you know, key trigger words to describe somebody as racist. You know, very sad. But in any case, coming up this next month in August, the BRICS nations are going to have a meeting on how to replace the US dollar, and they're going to replace it with a digital currency that's backed up by gold. It's not going to be worthless paper like the US dollar. So I can tell you, fam, when that happens, you're going to see poverty in America like you've never seen. And the reason being is 49% of the world has already given up on the US dollar. That means when our politicians spend through the roof and then they issue bonds to float the debt and have some other country buy our debt, nobody wants it anymore. Our credit rating went from AAA down to AA, which makes borrowing more expensive for our country. And it makes us a shakier deal so that fewer people will loan the money. The money that we print represents a promissory note, is all the US dollar is now. It's not backed by anything. And it's a promissory note that we promise we're going to pay on it. And we can barely afford the interest payments alone. And it's such an astronomical number that the whole world knows it will never be able to pay the money back. We could have fixed the problem in years past, but we did stuff like we sent millions of dollars to Pakistan for gender studies to try and get their society as gender confused and woke as our society, and they wouldn't have any part of it. The Muslim nations don't fool around. They don't play, with this wokeness and all this other stuff. Our military has gone woke, and other militaries, are recruiting people. In America, we can't get anybody to join up because people don't want to fight and give up their lives for all of this ridiculousness that we're promulgating. And one of you all asked me a trick question. It was about a preacher at a pride parade, and he was trying to tell the people about the love of Jesus Christ. And of course, the crowd was suspicious. And they asked him the question, well, what must we give up in order to, have eternal life through Jesus Christ? And of course, the preacher fell for it. And he said, well, God can make you straight. And after that, they started yelling at the man, and he blew it. And the reason I'll tell you why is because any addiction that you have is what's called a dry well. You can never get enough of it. Like for me, an addiction would be like chocolate pudding. There's never been enough chocolate pudding in my life to satisfy me. And there's never been enough macaroni and cheese, a good macaroni and cheese. I've never been satisfied eating chocolate pudding or macaroni and cheese. When I grew up, I had to depend on myself, so I did not do drugs. I had people at times try to trick me into doing drugs, but I didn't do them in and of myself because I had to depend on myself. So I went through a period of drinking for a while, smoking cigarettes, and then God just took that away like in a day. I just stopped doing it. And fam, if you don't want your children to drink, don't give them alcohol. When I was 11, 11 was a bad year for me. And my father was out back drinking this ice cold beer on a hot day. And he asked me if I'd like a sip of it. And being a smart aleck, I took the glass and I drank as much of the beer as I could get down before he grabbed the glass back away from me. But see, the problem was after that, on a hot summer's day, I didn't want lemonade, I didn't want iced tea, I didn't want Coca-Cola, I didn't want water. I wanted a nice ice cold salty beer. And it immediately was a problem for me. And when I started working full time at 14 years old, I started to go out with the men from the gas station to these clubs and jiggle joints and drink with the other guys, because by that time I was a really a scruffy big kid. And working in a Esso station, I was always greasy, and I would go downtown with the other guys. They were all in their late 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, depending on who I went with. And nobody ever carded you back then. This was over a half a century ago. They didn't start carding people until all of these bad accidents and stuff happened, and they found out that underage kids were drinking and driving and all of that other stuff. These horrific accidents of people going through the windshield and stuff like that. My nephew had a friend who was drinking and driving, and he had the beer bottle up to his mouth, and he ran into the back of a truck, and it knocked him through the windshield, and it knocked the beer bottle down his throat. And so my nephew and some other kids used a Ouija board, and this guy's name was Daryl, and it was a very unusual way that he spelled his name. And so they got a Ouija board out and tried to contact Daryl on the other side, and which is a very dangerous thing to do. And I would never buy anything from Hasbro, because they're the company that's pumping out these Ouija boards and getting young people hooked on the occult and all of that other mess. But in any case, they started working the Ouija board, and it spelled Daryl's name perfectly. And they asked it about a bunch of questions where he was, and it spelled out Hell. And then they asked him if he was having a good time, and it spelled out Fu, and the pointer shot off of the board, in anger. And I asked my nephew, I said, well, if you thought the guy was in heaven, why would you use something not of heaven to try and contact the guy? Which is a sin anyway. You're not supposed to contact the dead. The dead are supposed to rest, and we're not supposed to try and contact them or get hidden information. All of that, whenever you, because God has everybody on a level playing field. And when you try and get hidden information, that's witchcraft. So that's the long and the short of it. But in any case, my nephew went through some trouble after that, unfortunately. I think he opened a demonic door into his life, and things didn't go too well for him. But there's so many things that people are fooling with. I don't even believe personally that you should have a game station in your house because of those games like what is it, that auto game where you pick up hookers and then you do something with the hooker and then you push her out of the car. That's nothing for a child to be playing around with. And it's just opening a door into your house for the demonic to pass through. And it's also programming these children. And that's why every so often you'll have a child that gets programmed, and it's not satisfying for him to target zombies on a video game. He has to, it creates what's called a bloodlust. And then the kid goes out and he caps a whole bunch of people in a movie theater or a supermarket, a whole bunch of innocent people. Like that guy whose parents gave him the GUN, and he went into the church and capped those 9 people. And the one lady who survived said to him, "Why would you do that? We invited you in and we enjoyed your company up until the time that, he decided to slaughter everybody." And they're all cowards, for the most part. They either cap themselves so that they don't have to face the consequences, or if they do get arrested, they get an attorney and they go through multiple appeals because they don't want to lose their life, so they beg and plead, for mercy from the court after they've ruined all of these other people's lives. But I'll tell you, fam, long story short, a lot of stuff is happening. The 9th of Av is coming up. The Feast of Trumpets is coming up. These are all going to be high watch times for the rapture. All of this stuff that's taking place is absolutely biblical. And people like Canadian Prepper, who's a very brilliant young man, who has a great grasp on the WAR, between the Bear Country and the Crane people. And he uses, by his own words, the term biblical, which it is. And he's atheist or agnostic. He said it a number of times, which makes me sad, because as high priest of his family, he's going to be responsible for the soul salvation of his 2 kids. And if they as a family have to go through the tribulation that's coming up, it's going to be a horrible thing for them. And I'm hoping that all of us are ready so that when the good Lord comes back, we won't have to be left behind in this mess, because it's going to be a mess. Another thing the Bible predicted was the Bible said that eating of the mouse and the pig was an abomination. And scientists a few years ago spliced the genes of a mouse and a pig, and they came up with something that they patented called the Eco Pig. and it's supposed to be a pig that doesn't mess as much or something like that, and it's more eco-friendly. But they weren't allowed to produce these things just yet. But now they're splicing pig genes with the genes of soybeans, and it's supposed to come up with a soy product that has pig protein in this special soybean that's coming up, and they're going to feed that to people. There's a company in Canada that's invested over $1 billion, and they process crickets for human consumption. Now, the problem with crickets is, for one thing, they carry a very nasty parasite. They are involved with molds and fungus. And the other thing is that ground up crickets have what's called chitin. And a bird can digest chitin, but a human can't. They've already given these potato chips with the cricket meal mixed in to little children in Australia. And out of the whole classroom, only one little boy had the nerve to speak up and say that he wasn't going to eat crickets. And then, of course, they all made fun of him for being a stick in the mud and a fuddy-duddy and all of that other stuff. But fam, that's the way it's going to be pretty soon, is that with the cryptocurrency and food shortages and energy shortages, there's going to be a lot of pressure on people to conform and compete for the last little bit of something that these global elites haven't destroyed. And if you notice, like all of these train crashes, derailments, the cars always end up going into a river or body of water and polluting it. It's happened time after time after time. And I believe, like I said, that there's a fifth column that's already at work in America to bring this country down. And it just makes me sad to see and hear about all of the things that are going on, the electric substations that are being destroyed, the food processing factories, the farms. Recently, one part, I think it was Germany, they mowed down all of these trees to build a wind farm. One of those electrical wind farms. So they got rid of the trees, which absorb carbon dioxide, in favor of these windmills. Just crazy stuff like that. Bad decisions that they're making. And then they put these solar arrays, massive solar arrays along the ground. And when a bird's flying along in the air and it gets between the sun and the solar array, it gets fried before it can fly out of the area. So it's killing off all of these birds and wildlife and everything. And we think that we're doing a good job, by not building coal plants, which, by the way, China is building a new coal plant. Every month they're coming out with another coal plant. So if you think that these people are reliable and trustworthy, fam, you're wrong. They're just playing the game until they can get the population down by hook or by crook. Poppity pops out. I love you all.